Daniel Ricciardo has managed to put himself in the center of attention yet again, and it seems like the F1 world is very intimidated when it comes to him racing in Formula 1. After being seen at the Faenza factory, the home of AlphaTauri, one couldn't help but relate the bad performance of Nyck De Vries with a potential comeback of Ricciardo to where it all started, the former Toro Rosso team. However, this mission would be a hardly accomplished one, and while there is a huge possibility we'll see the Honey Badger in Formula 1 sooner rather than later, the news was more than welcomed by every sincere fan of the sport. Is Ricciardo on his way to complete a comeback to Formula 1, but not just the one that he had in mind? Now, everything started with Nyck De Vries performing the way he did in the first 5 races, being unqualified by Yuki Tsunoda 4-1 and outperforming in the race events 5-0. The highest finish of De Vries is P14 in Bahrain, but it's worth noting that he crashed twice, in Baku and Melbourne, with both of the crashes being labelled as silly ones. While they were definitely backed by Franz Tost, the team principal in Departure, who said that De Vries needs to pass this process of rookie learning mistakes, Formula 1 is a fierce world in which if you don't perform, you're out. What doesn't go in De Vries' favour is the fact that Red Bull does not have patience for rookies, and that's been proven all over the years, especially from 2016 onwards. The only driver that managed to survive the harsh environment in Red Bull is the 2-time world champion Max Verstappen, who even forced Ricciardo out of the team, and some of their highest rated talents, like Pierre Gasly, managed to survive for only 12 races in the senior team. While De Vries was brought in by AlphaTauri initially, his solid performance last year in Monza was more than enough for Red Bull to consider him as a potential replacement for Sergio Perez. Now, to show that there is always only one number 1 driver in Red Bull, and his name is Max Verstappen, the Austrian squad signed Daniel Ricciardo as a reserve driver after last year's Brazil GP, which showed the dark side of being the number 2 drivers in Red Bull all over again. Ricciardo may have plans to return to a top performing team, but that's far from the reality we live in currently. 2 bad years in McLaren and a year off can definitely take their toll on you, and at the age of 33, there's only so much you can offer with just 8 Grand Prix wins behind your name. Look, I'm a huge fan of Ricciardo, don't get me wrong, but I don't see Red Bull jeopardizing their academy and all of the potential talent that is currently racing in Super Formula and Formula 2 to replace Perez with Ricciardo. This is where our video gets interesting. Will Ricciardo finally realize his real options and settle for a team that's far less superior than Red Bull? Something that wasn't on his mind a couple of months ago when he signed that reserve driver contract with the Austrian squad. Now, to achieve this scenario, Ricciardo would have to pray that the rumours are true, with Helmut Marko giving De Vries a 3-race ultimatum to perform. Otherwise, he's out the door. Yet again, why wouldn't we believe this? Red Bull isn't a team that invests a lot of trust in their rookies, especially if they don't perform well. And given the fact that Tsunoda has stepped up in his 3rd year as an AlphaTauri driver and hasn't finished below P11, it speaks volumes about how much you need to improve if you want to be considered as a potential driver for Red Bull. The major difference between Tsunoda and every other talented driver that had its chances with Red Bull, AlphaTauri and De Vries is the age gap. De Vries became a rookie at the age of 28, which, compared to his colleagues, is quite a lot. Yes, he did achieve what he achieved in Formula 2 and Formula E, and he did become a great single-seater competitor in these respective series. But Formula 1 is a different ground. This is a place in which if you don't perform, you'll be shown the exit door of the team, and that seems to be happening with Nyck De Vries right now. I know that's not fair that Red Bull are judging the talent after only 5 races, and I know that De Vries performing under pressure could mean 2 things. He would either become a great driver, or he would be the bearer of one of the shortest F1 careers. 8 races as a full-time driver, and 1 race as a substitute for Alex Albon last year, where everything changed for him. But that's life, and De Vries knew that before he signed for AlphaTauri. Now, why did the team choose to sign yet another driver, who, by the way, is a rookie at the age of 28? One of the reasons why is because Liam Lawson wasn't available at that time due to the fact he didn't have enough super license points, and Colton Herta wasn't able to obtain the super license with the exemption of the FIA. This goes to show that De Vries, although talented and on Alpine's radar as well, was the 3rd option for AlphaTauri, which only points to one fact: that they aren't too attached to him. It's not like they've bred him in their own academy. They've literally brought him from Mercedes, as everything De Vries did up until joining AlphaTauri was associated with the Silver Arrows. So would Ricciardo be the perfect replacement for De Vries if the Austrian teams decides to take this harsh step for De Vries' career? If he finally accepted the fact that Perez is doing what's supposed to be done by him, competing, there is zero to no chance that he'll take the Mexican seat, then AlphaTauri would be more than willing to sign him. Yes, Ricciardo is likely waiting for further turmoil in the Verstappen-Perez relationship, something that can definitely happen if Perez shows that he can win more races and endanger Verstappen's championship quest. But will Red Bull give up on the best teammate Verstappen has had so far? It would be a knife with two edges, and according to Ralf Schumacher, Verstappen's camp is already fed up with Perez and his competitiveness, and the Dutchman has already requested a new teammate. This may be the sole hope that Ricciardo has that Red Bull will consider bringing him back to the first driver's seat, but will the team place him, or will they go back to their conventional way of signing a young driver, giving him 10 to 15 races to prove himself, and if he fails, then trying with another one, as their pool of choices is very deep at this point. That's a question that Ricciardo needs to answer himself before he does anything related to his Formula 1 future. But as things stand, it seems like he could accept an unconventional role in his career, bringing a team back to midfield. This has been offered to him by Haas, but he didn't even bother to pick up the phone, according to Steiner, and the situation is no different in AlphaTauri either. Quite the contrary, they are the 9th team now, slower than Haas, who are at the 7th seed and are in regular competition for scrap points. What is good news for De Vries is that AlphaTauri is bringing a lot of upgrades to the car in Imola, the race in which almost every team will bring upgrades, including Mercedes with a new side pod design. If De Vries fails to perform yet again, when the car will probably get its biggest problem solved, the drag on the main straight, then I'd hate to say it, but we've probably been fooled by De Vries' amazing one-race performance in Monza last year. It's not like he doesn't have what it takes to be in Formula 1, but it's similar to comparing Leclerc's consistency in terms of being a championship contender or not. You can always bet he'll be up there in the points, but it's far from enough to challenge the enraged bull in Verstappen, who seems to be like a robot, race after race. To even think that De Vries was the one that was supposed to lead the team from 2023 onwards, and Tsunoda would have to fight for his seat, seems like a joke right now. And in the hostile world of Formula 1, replacements can come and go very quickly. Now it's up to Ricciardo to accept whether or not he wants to lead a team on their salvage path, where they would have to fight in the midfield after being next to last as of now. On top of that, it's not a guarantee that AlphaTauri would want to settle for Ricciardo, as they might want to try something new in Dennis Hauger, Ayumu Iwasa or Liam Lawson, with the latter being more and more related to a future F1 seat. It's going to be an interesting period ahead for Ricciardo, who may see one of his last chances to ever join an F1 team if he continues with his egoistic approach about driving for a top performing team when the reality is quite different in the everyday world, one that's not happening in his head.